Under the blazing Georgia sun of a summer afternoon in Atlanta, Danielle Brooks stood in the backyard of her new home, hands on her hips, her deep brown eyes shimmering with pride and a touch of disbelief. The two-story house with its pristine white walls, slate gray roof, and the dazzling backyard pool, it all felt like a vision she'd carried in her heart through 15 grueling years as a cop. That pool, its crystal-clear water sparkling like a sheet of glass under the relentless sunlight, was her hard-earned reward for sleepless nights on duty, frigid patrols in the rain, and every time she clenched her teeth and skipped a meal out to save a few bucks. Now, at 38, Danielle had achieved what her parents, immigrant workers who'd only known cramped, dim apartments, couldn't even dare to dream: owning a house in Peachtree Heights, one of Atlanta's ritziest neighborhoods, where every street oozed wealth and quiet elegance. Danielle wasn't the type to flaunt anything. She was practical, down-to-earth, with her curly black hair tied back in a no-nonsense ponytail, sharp eyes honed from years of staring down crooks, and a smile that came rarely but radiated warmth when it did. That day she wore a faded gray t-shirt, worn thin at the shoulders, and ripped knee jeans, hardly the look of someone who'd just dropped nearly $1 million on a house. Standing by the pool, she closed her eyes, letting the warm breeze brush her face, feeling the weight of her life's struggles melt away. "I did it," she whispered to herself, her voice trembling slightly. It wasn't just joy, it was liberation. Liberation from the days crammed into a rundown apartment on the outskirts of town, from the skeptical glances of colleagues who couldn't believe a black woman like her dared to aim higher than her rank at the precinct. But that peaceful moment didn't last long. From the other side of the white wooden fence, a figure emerged silently, like a dark cloud creeping over the sun. Victor Hayes, a middle-aged man with neatly gelled salt and pepper hair and an expensive navy polo shirt, stood on the second-floor balcony of the house next door, phone in hand, staring straight at Danielle. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just watched, his cold, piercing gaze sizing her up like she was an intruder. Danielle felt it before she even opened her eyes, a chill crawling up her spine, the same gut-twisting instinct she'd had years ago when she'd spotted a junkie lurking near her patrol car on a winter night. She opened her eyes, turned her head, and locked onto Victor. She flashed a polite smile, raised a hand in a small wave, the kind of neighborly gesture anyone new to a place might offer. But Victor didn't budge. He turned sharply, disappearing behind a beige curtain, leaving Danielle with a sinking feeling that gripped her chest like a vice. Headphone, welcome to Soul Deep Stories. Glowing star, if you're deeply immersed in this story, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss more heart-touching stories. Sparkling heart. Pushpin, I have a small challenge for you. Comment below and let us know which country you're listening from and what time it is. For example, I'm in New York, USA, enjoying this story at 9 p.m. Crescent Moon. How about you? Let's connect with each other from all around the world. Globe showing Europe, Africa sparkles. Speech balloon, don't forget to like and share to spread these meaningful stories to more people. Thank you for being a part of Soul Deep Stories. Red heart. The next day things started to come into focus. Danielle hopped into her beat-up Honda Civic and headed to Home Depot for some essentials. A broom for the yard, a few outdoor bulbs, and a new lock for the back gate. She'd barely pulled out of the driveway when her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a notification from the security camera app she'd set up the day before, a parting gift from an old precinct buddy. She swiped it open and her heart skipped a beat. There on the screen was Victor Hayes, strutting through her back gate like he owned the damn place, decked out in a sleek gray swimsuit and glossy leather flip-flops. In his hand was a neatly folded ash-gray towel, and his eyes scanned her yard with an eerie confidence. He stopped by the pool, set the towel on a chair, and dipped his feet into the water, tilting his head back like he was lounging at some exclusive club. Danielle slammed her foot on the gas, tearing back home at a speed she hadn't hit since chasing down a fleeing suspect on I-85. Sweat beaded on her forehead, not from the 90-degree Atlanta heat, but from the slow-burning rage simmering inside her, a fury she knew all too well from years of being dismissed for her skin or her gender. When she screeched into the driveway and stormed to the backyard, Victor was still there, sprawled out on her lounge chair, sipping from a bottle of water he'd clearly brought over from his own house. Danielle took a deep breath, stepping out into the yard, forcing her voice to stay steady like she'd done 1,000 times dealing with drunk troublemakers outside dive bars. "Hey there," she said, standing a few feet away, arms crossed to hide the slight tremble in her hands. "Can I help you with something?" Victor looked up, his pale gray eyes flickering with a split second of surprise before settling into a smug, lopsided grin. "Oh, who are you?" he drawled, stretching the words like he was auditioning for a play. "I thought you were the new pool cleaner or something. The old owners always let me use this thing." Danielle felt the heat rush to her face. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms to stop herself from snapping. "I'm not the pool cleaner," she said, her tone firm but still laced with the professionalism she'd honed over years on the force. "I'm the new owner of this house. And I'd really appreciate it if you asked permission before coming in here." Victor let out a raspy, barking laugh, like he'd just heard the punchline to a bad joke at his golf club. He stood up, clapping his hands slowly, mockingly, like he was humoring a kid. "New owner? Really?" He eyed her up and down, his gaze dripping with doubt and a barely veiled sneer. "I know Emily, the realtor who sold this place. She didn't mention anything about, well, someone like you." He paused, letting the words hang there, heavy with the unspoken implication. About race, about class, about who belonged in a neighborhood like this. Danielle felt a jolt, like electricity surging through her veins. She'd dealt with guys like Victor before, men who thought they owned the world because they had money, connections, and the right shade of pale skin to match this upscale zip code. But this was different. This was her house, her dream, and she'd be damned if anyone trampled it. "There's no mistake here, Mr. Hayes," she said, each word sharp and deliberate, her voice like steel. "This is my home. And you're trespassing. Please leave." Victor shrugged, picking up his towel, but before he walked off he turned back, fixing her with an icy stare. "We'll see each other again," he muttered, low enough that only she could hear. It wasn't a greeting, it was a threat, a promise of trouble brewing. As Victor's shadow disappeared beyond the gate, Danielle stood there watching the pool water ripple quietly. The joy she'd felt earlier was gone, replaced by a heavy unease pressing down on her shoulders. She knew guys like Victor all too well, arrogant types who never backed down, who couldn't stomach the idea that the world might shift, that someone like her could stand toe-to-toe with them in this fancy neighborhood. But she also knew she wasn't a pushover. 15 years on the force had taught her how to face down threats way bigger than some self-important neighbor. She turned back inside, grabbed her phone, and checked the security footage. There it was, Victor strolling in clear as day, every detail from his shiny flip-flops to that smug grin. "All right," she muttered, her finger brushing the screen, a spark of resolve flaring in her eyes. "If you want to play, I'll play." From that moment, Danielle knew her dream. The house, the pool, the quiet life, wouldn't come easy. Victor Hayes wasn't just an annoying neighbor. He was a storm waiting to break, and she'd have to fight to hold on to what was hers. But deep inside, a fire roared to life, burning brighter than the Georgia sun. She wasn't giving up, not today, not ever. The sun hadn't even fully risen over Peachtree Heights when Danielle Brooks woke to the sound of voices drifting through her bedroom window. She rubbed her eyes, still groggy from a late night spent triple-checking her new gate lock and reviewing the security footage of Victor Hayes strutting into her yard like he owned it. That smug bastard had already planted a seed of unease in her gut, and now, just 3 days after their first run-in, it was sprouting faster than kudzu on a Georgia hillside. She stumbled to the window, peeling back the blinds, and what she saw made her stomach drop like a lead weight. There he was, Victor Hayes, standing by her pool again, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 other guys, both white, middle-aged, and decked out in pastel polos like they'd just stepped off a yacht, were with him. One held a beer can, the other a golf club, and Victor? He was shirtless, his paunchy gut hanging over a pair of loud red swim trunks, gesturing wildly at her house while laughing like a hyena. Danielle squinted, catching snippets of their conversation over the morning breeze. "New chick thinks she runs the place," Victor sneered loud enough for her to hear. "We'll see how long that lasts." Danielle's blood boiled. She yanked on a hoodie over her tank top, stormed downstairs and flung open the back door. "Hey!" she barked, stepping onto the patio, her voice cutting through the humid air like a gunshot. "What the fuck are you doing on my property again?" Victor turned, slow and deliberate, that same shit-eating grin spreading across his face. His buddies froze, exchanging awkward glances, but Victor didn't flinch. "Morning, sweetheart," he drawled, his tone dripping with condescension. "Just showing my friends the neighborhood's little upgrade." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the bourbon on his breath, his eyes raking over her body in a way that made her skin crawl. "You look good in that hoodie. What's under it?" Danielle's fists clenched so hard her knuckles cracked. She dealt with creeps like this on the beat, drunk assholes who thought a badge and a vagina made her fair game, but this was her home, her sanctuary, and this motherfucker was crossing a line. "Get the hell off my property," she said, her voice low and dangerous, the kind she'd used to make hardened felons back down. "Now." Victor chuckled, raising his hands in mock surrender, but he didn't move. Instead he leaned in, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. I could make things real nice for you here. A little arrangement, pool access for me, and maybe I'll throw in a few favors. You look like you could use some loosening up." His hand twitched like he was about to reach for her, and that was it. Danielle's cop instincts kicked in. She stepped forward, closing the gap, her face inches from his. "Touch me and I'll break your fucking arm," she spat, her eyes blazing. "I don't give a shit who you think you are. Get out." The air went still. Victor's grin faltered just for a second before he stepped back, laughing like it was all a big joke. "Feisty," he said, winking at his buddies. "I like that." The two guys shuffled nervously, muttering something about not worth it, and finally Victor sauntered off, tossing a "see ya later, babe" over his shoulder as they disappeared through the gate. Danielle stood there, chest heaving, her heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. She wanted to scream, to chase after him and slam his smug face into the pavement, but years on the force had taught her better. She needed evidence, control, something to nail this prick. She checked her cameras. Every word, every leering glance, was caught in crisp 4K. "Got you, asshole," she muttered, saving the file. But deep down she knew this was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Victor's harassment went from annoying to downright deranged. It started small, her morning paper vanishing from the driveway, tire tracks cutting through her pristine lawn overnight, anonymous HOA complaints about noise violations despite her barely making a peep. Then it got personal. One Saturday she came home from a grocery run to find her mailbox spray painted with "Go back where you came from" in jagged red letters. She knew it was him. Her cameras caught his shadow lurking near her driveway at 3 a.m., though the footage was too grainy to prove it outright. But the real gut punch came a week later. Danielle had spent the day at the precinct, catching up with old colleagues over coffee, laughing about the dumbass they used to bust. She'd left her hair down for once, her thick curls bouncing past her shoulders, a rare break from the tight ponytail she wore like armor. When she got home she noticed something off. The back door was ajar, just a crack. Her pulse spiked. She drew the Glock she still kept in a lockbox by the couch. Old habits die hard, and swept the house room by room. Nothing was missing, no sign of a break-in, until she hit the bathroom. There, on the sink, was a pair of scissors. And on the floor, a pile of her own fucking hair, chunks of her curls hacked off unevenly, like someone had taken a lawnmower to her head while she was gone. Danielle's hands shook as she touched her scalp, finding a ragged patch near the back where her hair now stopped short. "What the fuck?" she whispered, her voice breaking. She sank to the tiles, staring at the mess, her mind racing. Victor. It had to be him. No one else in this bougie-ass neighborhood had a reason to hate her this much. She checked the cameras again. Sure enough, there he was, 2:14 p.m., slipping in through the back gate with a key he must have swiped from the old owners, a pair of kitchen shears glinting in his hand. He'd gone straight to her bedroom, rifled through her shit, and then, Jesus Christ, stood in her bathroom snipping away at a lock of hair he'd yanked from her brush. The footage cut off as he left, but not before he looked right at the camera and smirked, like he knew she'd see it. Danielle didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, numb, the scissors cold against her palm, until the numbness burned into something else, rage, pure and white-hot. This wasn't just trespassing anymore. This was personal, fucked up, psycho-level shit. She uploaded the video to her cloud, sent a copy to her old partner, Jamal, with a text. "Need a favor. This asshole's gone too far." Then she grabbed a baseball cap, pulled it low over the butchered spot on her head and started planning. Victor didn't stop there. The next day the neighborhood WhatsApp group, usually full of boring shit like bake sale reminders, lit up with a new thread. Concerned resident posted, "Anyone else worried about the new girl on Oak Grove? Saw her stumbling home drunk last night, yelling at kids. Not the vibe we want here." Danielle stared at her phone, dumbfounded. She'd been stone cold sober last night, binge-watching Netflix in sweatpants. Then came the kicker, a blurry photo of a woman who vaguely looked like her, staggering down the street. It was bullshit, photoshopped or staged, but the damage was done. Replies poured in, "Property values are gonna tank." Who let her in? Heard she's got a record, typical. Her phone buzzed again, Jamal. "Yo D, this is fucked. That pic's fake as hell, I ran it through some software. You good?" She wasn't good. She was humiliated, pissed, and worst of all, scared. Victor wasn't just coming for her house. He was coming for her name, her dignity, everything she'd busted her ass to build. She typed back, "I'm handling it," but her hands shook so bad she could barely hit send. That night she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made her jump, Every shadow felt like Victor lurking with those damn scissors. She kept replaying his words, "Loosen you up," and the way his eyes had lingered, hungry and unhinged. She'd faced gangbangers, drug dealers, even a knife-wielding lunatic once, but this was a different kind of threat, one that slithered under her skin and stayed there. The next morning she found a note slipped under her front door. Scrawled in black marker, "You don't belong here, bitch. Leave or it gets worse." No signature, but she didn't need one. She crumpled it, her breath ragged, and marched to her office nook where her laptop hummed. She pulled up every piece of footage she had, Victor by the pool, Victor with his sleazy friends, Victor cutting her fucking hair, and started editing. She wasn't just gathering evidence anymore. She was building a goddamn war chest. By noon the HOA meeting rolled around and Victor made his next move. He stood up, all fake concern, his voice booming through the community center. "I'm worried about safety," he said, shooting Danielle a side eye. "Some new folks don't respect boundaries, trespassing, harassing neighbors. I've got proof." He held up his phone, showing a doctored video of Danielle supposedly banging on his door, screaming obscenities. The room gasped. Danielle's jaw dropped, then clenched. That lying piece of shit had flipped the script, painting her as the villain. She stood, legs trembling but voice steady. "Funny you mention proof, Mr. Hayes," she said, pulling out her own phone. "How about we watch this?" She hit play, projecting the real footage, Victor leering at her, propositioning her, snipping her hair like a fucking lunatic. The room went dead silent. Victor's face drained of color, his mouth flapping like a fish out of water. That's edited," he stammered, but the timestamps and crystal-clear audio told a different story. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Sick bastard. She's a cop, right?" He screwed. Danielle locked eyes with him, her cap hiding the jagged patch on her head, and smiled, just a little. "Game's up, asshole," she said under her breath. She didn't know how far this fight would go, but one thing was clear. Victor Hayes had picked the wrong woman to fuck with. The air in the Peachtree Heights Community Center hung thick with tension as the last frame of Danielle Brooks' security footage flickered off the projector screen. Victor Hayes' smug face, caught mid-smirk as he snipped her hair like some deranged barber, lingered in everyone's mind. The room, packed with HOA busybodies in their pressed khakis and pearl necklaces, was so quiet you could hear the hum of the AC unit. Danielle stood there, her baseball cap pulled low over the jagged patch on her scalp, her chest tight with a cocktail of fury and triumph. She just dropped a fucking bomb on Victor's little smear campaign, and the look on his pasty face, pale, slack-jawed and scrambling, was worth every second of the hell he'd put her through. Victor sputtered, his voice cracking like a teenager caught shoplifting. That's bullshit. She edited it. You can't trust her." But the timestamps didn't lie, and neither did the audio, his sleazy "loosen you up" line echoing through the room like a bad Tinder pickup gone viral. A few neighbors shifted uncomfortably in their seats, whispering behind cupped hands. "He's fucked," someone muttered from the back. "She's a cop, ain't she?" another chimed in. Danielle didn't say a word. She didn't have to. She just stared Victor down, her eyes burning holes through him, and let the evidence do the talking. But Victor wasn't done. He lurched forward, jabbing a finger at her, his voice rising to a desperate pitch. "You think you can waltz in here, play victim and ruin me? I've lived here 20 years. I know the captain down at the precinct. Hell, I've got half the damn council on speed dial. You're nobody." Spit flew from his mouth, his red swim trunks peeking out from under his polo like a clownish afterthought. Danielle's stomach churned, but she held her ground, years of facing down screaming perps keeping her steady. "Keep digging, asshole," she thought, her lips twitching into a faint, cold smile. "You're just making the hole deeper." The HOA president, a wiry woman named Cheryl with a perm straight out of the 80s, banged her gavel. "Enough," she snapped, glaring at Victor. "Sit down, Hayes, before you make this worse. And you," she turned to Danielle, softening just a hair, "we'll look into this. Bring any more footage you've got to the next meeting." The crowd dispersed, buzzing like wasps kicked out of their nest, and Danielle slipped out the back, her heart still jackhammering. She'd won this round, but the war? That was just getting started. Back home, Danielle locked every door, double-checked the windows, and sank into her couch, the Glock resting on the cushion beside her like an old friend. Her phone buzzed. Jamal again. "Holy shit, D, you aired his dirty laundry good? Precinct's already talking about it." Captain's pissed. Hayes dropped his name. "You okay?" She typed back, "Yeah, for now. Thanks for the backup." But she wasn't okay. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and every creak of the house sent her reaching for the gun. Victor's note, "Leave or it gets worse," was crumpled on the coffee table, staring up at her like a dare. She'd faced down worse than him, armed robbers, meth heads, you name it, but this felt different. This was personal, invasive, like he'd wormed his way into her bones. She couldn't sit still. She grabbed her laptop, pulled up every scrap of footage she'd saved. Victor by the pool with his creep squad, Victor painting her mailbox, Victor cutting her goddamn hair, and started stitching it together. She wasn't just documenting anymore. She was building a case, a fortress of proof to bury him. Her old cop instincts kicked into overdrive: record everything, anticipate the next move, stay one step ahead. By 2 a.m. she had a 10-minute montage time-stamped and watermarked, ready to send to Jamal and the HOA. "Try spinning this, you sick fuck," she muttered, hitting save. But sleep didn't come easy. She kept seeing Victor's leer, hearing his slimy voice, feeling the phantom weight of those scissors in her bathroom. At 4 a.m. she gave up, brewed a pot of coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and sat by the back window watching the pool shimmer under the moonlight. That's when she heard it, a faint metallic clink from the gate. Her head snapped up, coffee sloshing over the rim. She grabbed the Glock, crept to the blinds and peeked out. Nothing. Just shadows. But her gut screamed otherwise. She checked the cameras. Live feed showed the gate swinging open then shut, but no one in sight. "Fucking coward," she hissed, her breath fogging the glass. He was toying with her, testing her nerves. The next day she called a locksmith, some grizzled guy named Tony with a thick Southside accent, and had every lock swapped out, deadbolts included. "Heard you got a nutcase next door," Tony said, wrenching a bolt into place. "My cousin had a neighbor like that, ended up with a restraining order. You need a pit bull or something?" Danielle forced a laugh. "Might just borrow yours," she said, but her eyes kept darting to Victor's house, half expecting him to pop out like some horror movie villain. She wasn't wrong to worry. That afternoon she stepped outside to grab the mail and froze. Her front yard, her pristine, freshly mowed lawn, was trashed. Toilet paper hung from the oak tree like some shitty Halloween prank, empty beer cans littered the grass, and scrawled across her garage door in dripping black spray paint, "Whore." Danielle's knees buckled. She stumbled back, clutching the mailbox, her breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a declaration of war. She snapped photos, her hands trembling so bad the first few came out blurry, then checked the cameras. There he was, 3:47 a.m., Victor in a black hoodie, shaking a spray can like a goddamn graffiti artist. He'd even waved at the lens, the bastard, his grin wide and unhinged. Danielle's vision blurred with tears, not sadness but pure, unfiltered rage. "You wanna play dirty?" she snarled, storming inside. "Let's fucking play." She called Jamal first. "I need you to pull some strings," she said, her voice tight. "This prick's escalating, vandalism, threats, the works. Can you get me a sit-down with the captain?" Jamal didn't hesitate. "On it, D. Stay safe, I'm sending a patrol car by tonight." Next, she emailed the HOA with the new footage, CCing Cheryl and every board member she could find. "Victor Hayes is a menace," she wrote, attaching the video. "This isn't about property values, it's about safety. Do something." By dusk, a patrol car rolled up, two young cops, Rodriguez and Kim, stepping out to take her statement. "Heard you were one of us," Rodriguez said, nodding at her with respect. "This guy's a real piece of work. We'll log it, but you got enough for a restraining order yet?" Danielle shook her head. "Not yet, but I'm close. Just keep an eye out, yeah?" They promised to cruise by hourly, and for the first time in days she felt a flicker of relief. But Victor wasn't slowing down. The next morning she woke to her phone blowing up, texts from neighbors she barely knew, all linking to the WhatsApp group. Another post from concerned resident: "Caught her sneaking around my yard last night, think she's casing houses. Lock your doors." Attached was a grainy night shot, someone in a hoodie near Victor's gate. It wasn't her. Danielle had been home, deadbolt in, but the implication stuck. "Fucking liar," she growled, slamming the phone down. Her reputation, already bruised from his last stunt, was taking another hit. She fought back tears, pacing the kitchen, then grabbed her cap and headed to Home Depot again. This time she bought 3 more cameras, motion-activated, night vision, the works, and spent the afternoon rigging them up, one aimed straight at Victor's house. "Smile, motherfucker," she muttered, tightening the last screw. She wasn't just defending herself now, she was hunting, laying traps for the next time he slipped up. That night, the patrol car rolled by as promised, its headlights slicing through the dark. Danielle watched from her office nook, sipping cold coffee, her laptop glowing with live feeds. At 11:32 p.m., the motion alert pinged. She bolted upright, heart in her throat, and switched to the new camera. Victor was back, crouched by her mailbox, a crowbar in hand, prying it open. He yanked out a stack of letters, stuffed them in his jacket, and scurried off, glancing over his shoulder like a rat in a trap. Danielle's pulse raced, but a slow, fierce grin spread across her face. "Gotcha," she whispered, saving the clip. She emailed it to Jamal, the HOA, and, fuck it, the local news tip line. "Let's see you talk your way out of this, you slimy bastard." She leaned back, exhaustion warring with adrenaline, and for the first time in weeks she felt the tide turning. Victor thought he could break her, scare her off, but he didn't know who he was fucking with. She'd survived worse, street fights, dirty cops, a system that never wanted her to win, and she'd survive him too. But as she drifted to sleep, the Glock back by her side, a new sound jolted her awake, a low, guttural laugh from outside her window. Her eyes snapped open, wide and wild, and she knew Victor wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The low, guttural laugh echoing outside Danielle Brooks' window cut through the silence like a jagged blade. She bolted upright on the couch, her Glock already in hand, her heart slamming against her ribcage. The clock glowed 2:17 a.m., the house dark except for the faint blue flicker of her laptop screen. That laugh, it was Victor Hayes, no fucking doubt about it. The same smug, unhinged cackle she'd heard by the pool, now slithering through the night air like a taunt. She crept to the window, peeling back the blinds with one finger, her breath shallow and sharp. The backyard was still, too still, the pool glinting under the moonlight like a trap waiting to snap shut. Nothing moved, but she felt him out there watching, waiting. "Fucking psycho," she muttered, her voice a low growl. She checked the cameras, every angle, every feed, but the bastard was gone, a ghost slipping through the shadows. The latest clip from earlier, him prying open her mailbox with that crowbar, was still uploading to Jamal, the HOA, and the news tip line. She'd caught him red-handed, but this laugh? This was his way of saying he didn't give a shit. He was doubling down, and Danielle knew it. Her hands shook, not from fear but from a rage so deep it felt like it could split her open. She wasn't just defending her house anymore, she was fighting for her sanity, her life. Sleep was off the table. She brewed another pot of coffee, the bitter smell grounding her, and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the Glock. She'd survived 15 years on the force, shootouts, stakeouts, assholes twice Victor's size, but this was different. This wasn't some random thug. This was a calculated, personal attack, and it was wearing her down. The hacked-off patch of hair under her cap, the spray-painted whore on her garage, the fake posts trashing her name, it all piled up, a mountain of bullshit she couldn't shovel fast enough. But she wasn't about to break. "You picked the wrong bitch," she whispered, her lips curling into a grim smile. By sunrise she had a plan. Victor wanted to play dirty? She'd play smarter. She remembered a trick from an old case, a sting her partner Jamal had pulled on a creep harassing a single mom. They'd used bait, something irresistible, to lure him out and nail him. Victor's obsession was her pool, his little kingdom he couldn't let go of. She'd give him exactly what he wanted, but on her terms, with a twist that'd burn him so bad he'd wish he'd never set foot in Peachtree Heights. She called Jamal first, her voice steady despite the caffeine jitters. "I need something, non-toxic, legal but fucked up enough to make a point. You still got that dye from the vandalism case?" Jamal laughed, a deep, knowing rumble. "The green shit? Turned skin into a goddamn lime for a week? Yeah, I can hook you up. What's the play?" Danielle laid it out, Victor's pool fixation, his late-night prowling, the works. "I'm setting a trap," she said. "He steps in, he's marked, and I've got cameras rolling. Endgame." Jamal whistled. "You're a savage, D. I'll drop it by tonight, off the books. Watch your six." Next, she hit up Tony the locksmith again. "Need a favor," she said, pacing the yard as the morning heat crept in. "Can you rig my gate to look locked but pop open with a nudge? I want someone to think they're sneaking in." Tony chuckled. "You're setting a snare for that prick, huh? Hell yeah, I'm in. Be there in an hour." She hung up, her mind racing. The dye, the gate, the cameras, she was building a net and Victor was about to stumble right into it. While Tony worked, Danielle researched the dye, a pool maintenance trick, safe but reactive with sunscreen chemicals, the kind Victor and his rich-ass buddies slathered on like lotion. She tested it in a bucket with some leftover Coppertone she'd found in the garage. 5 minutes in, the water turned a bright, unholy green. "Perfect," she muttered, imagining Victor's smug face melting into a St. Patrick's Day nightmare. It wasn't permanent, wouldn't hurt him, Just humiliate the shit out of him, and that was better than any punch she could throw. By noon the setup was ready. Tony had the gate rigged. A push and it'd swing wide, no key needed, but it looked secure enough to fool a cocky bastard like Victor. She added the dye to the pool, following the exact dosage Jamal had texted. Colorless in the water, invisible until it hit the right trigger. She upgraded her camera game too. 3 new angles hidden in the bushes, catching every inch of the pool deck. "Come and get it, asshole," she said, stepping back to admire her work. The trap was set, but her gut churned. This wasn't just about winning, it was about survival. That night, Jamal swung by in his beat-up F-150, tossing her a small vial of the dye concentrate. "Extra juice?" he grinned, leaning against the truck. "Captain's already chewing haze out for name-dropping, guys on thin ice. You sure about this?" Danielle nodded, her cap shadowing her tired eyes. "He's not stopping, Jay. I've got no choice." Jamal clapped her shoulder. "You're a badass D. Call me if it goes sideways." He peeled out, leaving her alone with the plan humming in her head. She didn't have to wait long. The next day the neighborhood grapevine, aka the nosy-ass WhatsApp group, lit up with Victor's latest move. "Pool party at the usual spot tomorrow," he posted, tagging his usual crew. "New chicks out of town, let's reclaim what's ours." Danielle's jaw tightened. She hadn't left town, but she'd parked her Civic 2 blocks over that morning, letting him think she was gone. He'd taken the bait, hook, line and sinker. She prepped like it was a stakeout, black hoodie, coffee thermos, phone on silent. At midnight she slipped into her office nook, the pool view perfect through the blinds, and waited. The patrol car cruised by at 1 a.m., right on schedule, but Victor was smarter this time. At 2:13 a.m. the motion alert pinged. She switched to the live feed, her breath catching. There he was, Victor, in a loud Hawaiian shirt and flip-flops, testing the gate. It swung open with a nudge, just like she'd planned, and he froze, glancing around like a kid sneaking cookies. Then he grinned, waved his crew in, 4 guys, all pasty and paunchy, lugging a cooler and a Bluetooth speaker. Danielle's fingers tightened around her phone, recording every second. Victor led the charge, strutting to the pool like a king reclaiming his throne. "Told you she's full of shit," he crowed, cracking a beer. "This is our spot." His buddies laughed, stripping down to trunks, slathering on sunscreen, high-end stuff, the exact kind she'd tested. Danielle's pulse raced, a mix of dread and glee. "Come on, you fucker," she whispered. "Jump in." Victor obliged. He cannonballed into the pool, sending a splash over the deck, his crew cheering like frat boys. They followed, diving in one by one, the water rippling under the floodlights. For a minute it looked normal, 5 idiots splashing around, oblivious. Then it started. One guy, bald with a beer gut, squinted at his arm. Vic, something's off," he said, his voice pitching up. Danielle leaned closer to the screen, her heart pounding. Under the lights, his skin was turning green, bright, neon, unmistakable. Victor surfaced, shaking water from his hair, and froze. His hands, pale a second ago, were now a vivid, sickly lime. "What the fuck?" he bellowed, thrashing to the edge. His crew panicked, scrambling out, their legs and arms blooming green like they'd rolled in paint. "My wife's gonna kill me," one wailed, staring at his streaked chest. "I've got a meeting tomorrow," another shrieked, clawing at his face, now smeared with emerald streaks from his dripping sunscreen. Victor spun wild-eyed and spotted the camera, its red light blinking like a taunt. "You bitch," he roared, lunging for it, but his wet flip-flops slipped, and he face-planted on the deck with a meaty thud. Danielle couldn't help it. She laughed, a sharp, jagged sound that echoed in the empty house. She hit save, uploaded the feed, and sent it to Jamal with a text. "It's done." The chaos unfolded in real time. Victor's crew bolting, half-naked and green, leaving trails of water and curses down the street. Victor staggered to his feet, dripping, his Hawaiian shirt clinging to his now vermilion skin, and glared at her house. "This ain't over," he screamed, his voice cracking, before limping off, a neon nightmare in retreat. By morning the video was everywhere. WhatsApp, Facebook, even the local news picked it up. Peachtree Heights prank gone wrong trended, with clips of Victor's green ass slipping on her deck racking up millions of views. Danielle watched from her couch, coffee in hand, as the comments rolled in. "Karma's a bitch. Who's the trespasser now, dickhead?" Her phone buzzed. "Jamal, you're a legend, D. Captain's hauling him in, mail theft's a felony. You good?" She texted back, "Better than good," but her hands still shook. She'd hit him hard, but Victor's last scream, raw, unhinged, echoed in her head. She stepped outside, the pool calm again, and breathed deep. The dye would fade, the cameras would stay, and Victor? He'd think twice now. But as she turned back, a shadow flickered across his balcony. Victor, still green, staring down at her, his eyes burning with something darker than anger. Danielle's smile faded. She'd won this battle, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. Danielle Brooks stood in her backyard, the morning sun casting long shadows across the pool, its water now still and innocent looking after last night's chaos. The image of Victor Hayes, green as a lime, slipping on her deck and screaming bloody murder, played on a loop in her head, and for the first time in weeks she felt a flicker of peace. She sipped her coffee, the bitter taste grounding her, and scrolled through her phone. The video she'd unleashed had gone full-on viral. 5 million views on X overnight, with hashtags like #greenasshole and #poolkarma trending. Local news vans were already circling Peachtree Heights, their antennas poking up like vultures sniffing a carcass. She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. Victor's last glare from his balcony, those burning, unhinged eyes, stuck with her, a splinter she couldn't shake. Her phone buzzed. Jamal. "D, you're a fucking legend," he laughed, his voice crackling through the speaker. "Captain hauled Hayes in an hour ago. Mail theft's a federal rap, and that green shit? Pure gold. He's sweating bullets down at the precinct. You good?" Danielle leaned against the patio railing, glancing at Victor's house. "Yeah, Jay," she said, her voice steady but tight. "Just waiting for the dust to settle." Jamal paused, then lowered his tone. "Watch your back, all right? Guy's a cornered dog now, might bite harder." She nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "I've got eyes on him." "Thanks, man." She hung up, her gaze drifting to the new cameras, their red lights blinking like sentinels. The footage of Victor's neon meltdown was still racking up hits, clips of him flailing, his crew bolting half-naked down the street, and that glorious faceplant replayed endlessly online. The WhatsApp group, usually a cesspool of Victor's lies, had flipped overnight. "Serves him right," one neighbor posted. "Caught him peering in my windows last year, creep," another added. Danielle's chest loosened a fraction. Maybe she wasn't as alone in this fight as she'd thought. But Victor wasn't going quietly. By noon, the precinct called Rodriguez, one of the patrol cops from the other night. "Hey Brooks, heads up," he said, his Southside drawl clipped with urgency. "Hayes posted bail, some golf buddy lawyer sprang him. He's out and he's pissed. Screaming about you framing him, says he's got proof you tampered with the pool. Watch yourself, all right?" Danielle's stomach twisted. "Proof my ass," she muttered. "Thanks, Rodriguez. Keep me posted." She hung up, her mind racing. Victor didn't have shit. Her dye was legal, her cameras legit, but a desperate man with money could spin anything. She didn't have to wait long for his next move. At 2 p.m., a sleek black BMW rolled up to Victor's driveway, and out stepped a suit, sharp jaw, slicked back hair, the kind of lawyer who charged by the syllable. Victor followed, still faintly green, his Hawaiian shirt swapped for a rumpled button-down that did nothing to hide the tint on his neck. They huddled on his porch, Victor gesturing wildly, pointing at her house like a kid tattling to the principal. Danielle watched from her office nook, zooming the camera feed. "Come on, you bastard," she whispered. "Show me what you've got." That evening, the lawyer fired the first shot. A cease and desist letter slid under her door, demanding she take down the video and pay compensatory damages for emotional distress and defamation. Danielle snorted, reading the bullshit legalese. "Emotional distress? Motherfucker, you cut my hair and called me a whore." She scanned the letter. Victor claimed the dye was assault, that she'd lured him onto her property. It was flimsy as hell, but the threat of a lawsuit hit her like a punch. She wasn't rich, she couldn't afford some drawn-out court battle. Her hands shook as she texted Jamal. "He's suing. Need advice, fast." Jamal called back in 5 minutes. "D, relax," he said, calm but firm. "He's got no case. Trespassing's on tape, dye's pool grade, not a weapon. Captain says the mail theft alone could lock him up. Send me the letter, I'll run it by legal aid tomorrow." Danielle exhaled, her pulse slowing. "Thanks, Jay. I owe you." She hung up, but the unease lingered. Victor wasn't winning on facts, he was banking on intimidation, on wearing her down. She wouldn't let him. The neighborhood shifted fast. By dusk, the news vans had footage of Victor's arrest, handcuffed, green-tinged, and snarling as cops shoved him into a cruiser. "Local man faces charges after viral pool prank," the headlines blared. Danielle's inbox flooded. Reporters begging for a statement, neighbors offering support. Mrs. Alvarez from across the street dropped off a plate of tamales, her eyes soft. Should have said something sooner, she murmured. Hayes keyed my car last year, thought I was too loud. You're doing us a favor. Danielle smiled, the warmth cracking her armor. Just trying to live, Mrs. A. But Victor's crew didn't back off. That night her phone pinged, a new WhatsApp post from one of his golf buddies. She set him up, crazy bitch ruined a good man. Boycott her. A few liked it but the tide had turned, dozens clapped back. Good man? He's a perv. Check the tapes, dumbass. Danielle grinned but the crazy bitch stung. She'd fought that label her whole career, too tough, too loud, too black for the boys' club, and now it was back clawing at her. The real blow came at midnight. She was dozing on the couch, Glock within reach, when a crash jolted her awake, glass shattering loud and close. She sprang up, heart hammering, and ran to the front window. Her Civic's windshield was smashed, a brick lying in the wreckage wrapped in a note, "You're done, slut." Her breath caught, rage and fear colliding. She grabbed her phone, dialed 911 and checked the cameras. 2:03 a.m., a figure in a hoodie sprinting from her driveway. Too blurry to ID, but she'd bet her badge it was Victor or one of his lackeys. Cops arrived fast. Rodriguez and Kim again. Jesus Brooks, Kim said, eyeing the car. This guy's unhinged. We'll dust for prints, but you got that restraining order yet? Danielle shook her head, her voice tight. Working on it. Just get him all right? They nodded, but their grim faces said it all. Victor was slipping through the cracks and she was still in the crosshairs. By morning the story exploded. Peachtree Heights feud turns violent. The news screamed, showing her smashed car next to Victor's green mugshot. Her phone rang off the hook. Jamal, reporters, even Cheryl from the HOA who sounded shaken. We're banning him from meetings, she said. This is too far. Danielle barely heard her. She was staring at the brick, the note, her mind spinning. She'd humiliated him, sure, but this? This was a cornered animal lashing out, and she wasn't sure how much more she could take. She fought back the only way she knew how, more evidence. She sent the brick footage to Jamal, filed for the restraining order, and posted her own WhatsApp update. This is what Hayes does when he loses. I'm not running. The response was instant. Neighbors rallying, sharing their own Victor horror stories. He slashed my tires over a parking spot, one wrote. Called my kid a thug for skateboarding, another added. The dam broke and Victor's empire of bullshit crumbled. A week later the green faded from his skin, but not from his reputation. His lawyer dropped the suit, too much heat, no ground to stand on. The precinct hit him with felony mail theft charges, and whispers spread his golf buddies were ditching him. Heard he can't even sell a condo now, Jamal texted with a laughing emoji. Danielle chuckled, but her eyes stayed hard. She'd won, publicly, legally, but the brick through her windshield replayed in her dreams, a reminder of how close he'd gotten. Victor's house went quiet, blinds drawn, no more late-night laughs. Then one rainy afternoon, a for sale sign stabbed into his lawn. Danielle watched from her porch, rain dripping off her cap as movers hauled his shit out, golf clubs, a flat screen, that damn Hawaiian shirt. He emerged last, gaunt and gray, avoiding her gaze as he climbed into his BMW and peeled off. She raised her coffee mug, a silent toast, not to his defeat but to her survival. The neighborhood exhaled. Pool parties started at her place, real ones with invites and ribs on the grill. Kids splashed, parents laughed, and the HOA meetings turned into potlucks. First time I felt safe here, Mr. Nguyen from down the street said, flipping burgers. Danielle nodded, her cap off, the hacked patch growing back. But late at night, alone with the cameras humming, she still jumped at shadows. Victor was gone, but his mark lingered, a scar she'd carry, even as her pool became a beacon of something better. Below is the continuation of the story with Y6, written in English, flowing seamlessly from the emotional resolution and lingering tension of Y5. It remains consistent with the renamed characters, Danielle Brooks and Victor Hayes, and their established genders. This section, the positive outcome for Danielle and the neighborhood, maintains the raw, authentic American tone, delivering approximately 4,000 words of high-stakes drama, vivid emotions, and a triumphant yet cautious conclusion. It builds on Danielle's victory, transforms the neighborhood, and introduces a final twist to keep the suspense alive. The rain had stopped, leaving Peachtree Heights glistening under a late afternoon sun, the kind of light that made everything look clean and new. Danielle Brooks stood on her porch, coffee mug in hand, watching the last of Victor Hayes' moving truck rumble down the street. His for sale sign swayed in the breeze, a silent surrender stabbed into his manicured lawn. She exhaled long and slow, the weight of weeks, hell months, of bullshit lifting just enough for her to breathe. Victor was gone, his green-tinted ass hauled off to lick his wounds somewhere else, and for the first time since she'd moved in, her house felt like hers. But the scars lingered, the hacked patch of hair growing back under her cap, the faint outline of horror, still visible on her garage despite 3 coats of paint, the echo of that brick smashing her windshield. She'd won, but fuck, it didn't feel like a clean win. Her phone buzzed, Jamal is always checking in. D saw the truck peel out. You throwing a party or what? He teased, his voice warm through the crackle. Danielle smirked, leaning against the railing. Might just, Jay. Neighborhood's already buzzing, think they're ready to reclaim the block. Jamal laughed. Damn right. Captain says Hayes is toast. Mail theft plea deals got him on probation, banned from contacting you. You're free, girl. Free. The word hit her hard, a mix of relief and disbelief. Thanks, man, she said, her throat tight. Couldn't have done it without you. He brushed it off. Bullshit. You're a one-woman army. Holler if you need me. She hung up, her eyes drifting to the pool. Calm now, no trace of the green dye that had turned Victor into a viral laughingstock. That trap had been her Hail Mary, and it had worked better than she'd dreamed. The video, millions of views, news segments, even a late-night talk show bit, hadn't just humiliated him, it had flipped the script. Peachtree Heights wasn't his playground anymore. It was hers, and she was damn well gonna make it a home. The shift started small. That evening, Mrs. Alvarez from across the street knocked, her arms full of foil trays. Tamales, Mija, she said, her smile shy but genuine. For the fight you gave that cabron. We're throwing a barbecue tomorrow, your place if you're up for it. Danielle blinked, caught off guard. Hell yeah, I'm in, she said, taking the trays. Bring your salsa, shit's legendary. Mrs. Alvarez laughed, nodding, and for the first time, Danielle felt the neighborhood tilt toward her, not away. Word spread fast. WhatsApp lit up with plans, neighbors she'd barely met pitching in. Mr. Nguyen from 2 doors down offered to grill, his teenage son dragging over a cooler of beers. The Patels next door brought folding chairs, their twin girls chattering about swim races. By noon the next day, her backyard was alive, kids splashing in the pool, adults clustered around a makeshift grill, laughter cutting through the humid air. Danielle stood by the water, cap off, her uneven curls catching the sun. First time this place feels right, she muttered, flipping a burger. Mr. Nguyen grinned, clapping her shoulder. Took you kicking Hayes' ass to wake us up. Been here 10 years, never knew half these folks. She nodded, the warmth sinking in. This wasn't just a party, it was a reclaiming, a middle finger to Victor's reign of petty terror. The HOA even sent a group text. No more anonymous complaints, just a welcome Danielle, and a promise to rewrite the bylaws. Cheryl, the perm lady, showed up with a pie, her voice gruff but kind. Should have banned him years ago, she admitted. He bullied everyone, thought he owned us. Danielle took a slice, her eyes sharp. Not anymore. The pool became the heart of it all. Kids cannonballed off the diving board, parents traded stories of Victor's bullshit. Slashed tires, fake noise reports, creepy stares. He tried to get my dog taken away, Mrs. Patel said, sipping a beer. Said it barked too much, damn thing's mute. Laughter rippled, and Danielle felt the knot in her chest loosen. She turned his weapon, the pool, into a symbol, a fuck you to his entitlement. By dusk, the Patels twins begged her to coach their swim team. You're tough, one said, grinning. Like a superhero. Danielle ruffled their hair. Deal. But you're doing laps, till you puke. Weeks rolled by and the vibe stuck. Her backyard stayed open. Barbecues, swim lessons, even a movie night with a projector aimed at the garage. Neighbors she'd never spoken to waved now, stopped to chat. The Nguyen's brought over spring rolls, the Alvarez kids started a splash war that soaked half the block. First time I've slept without locking my windows, Mr. Patel said one evening, handing her a cold one. Danielle clinked bottles, her smile real. Same. But peace didn't erase the edge. Late at night, alone with the hum of her cameras, she still jumped at shadows. The restraining order was in place, Victor's charges sealed, his house sold to a quiet couple. 2 women, artists who waved shyly when they moved in. Heard you're the neighborhood badass, one said, unloading a canvas. Danielle chuckled. Just trying to live. They fit right in, their girls joining the swim crew, and the street felt lighter, like it had shed a bad skin. Then one muggy August night, shit hit the fan again. Danielle was cleaning the grill, the pool lights casting a soft glow when her phone pinged, a motion alert. She dropped the sponge, heart kicking into overdrive, and switched to the live feed. The backyard was empty, gate locked, but something glinted by the pool, a small, dark shape. She grabbed the Glock, slipped outside, her breath shallow. The air was thick, cicadas screaming, and there it was, a brick identical to the one that had smashed her car lying on the deck. Wrapped around it, a note in jagged marker, "You can't escape me." Her blood ran cold. She spun, scanning the shadows, the gun steady in her hands. "Victor," she hissed, her voice a blade. The cameras caught nothing. No figure, no hoodie, just the brick appearing between frames like a ghost had dropped it. She called Jamal, her words clipped. "He's back, Jay. Or someone's fucking with me." Brick, same as before. Jamal cursed. "On my way. Don't move." She didn't, stood there rooted, the note burning a hole in her pocket. Cops swarmed in, Rodriguez and Kim again, their faces grim. "No prints," Rodriguez said, bagging the brick. "But this ain't random. You sure he's gone?" Danielle nodded, her jaw tight. "Saw him leave. Probation says he's in Macon, 2 hours away." Kim frowned. "Could be a copycat. That video made you a target, lotta eyes on you now." She didn't buy it. This was Victor's handwriting, his spite, his stench. Jamal arrived, his F-150 screeching to a stop. "D, what the fuck?" he said, storming over. She handed him the note, her hands steady but her eyes wild. "He's screwing with me, Jay. Or someone is. I'm done playing defense." Jamal read it, his face darkening. "We'll track his ass. Probation officer's getting a call. You crash at my place tonight." She shook her head. "No. This is my house. He doesn't get to chase me out." The neighborhood rallied again. By morning, WhatsApp was ablaze. Mr. Nguyen set up a watch rota, Mrs. Alvarez baked extra tamales for strength. The Patels offered their guest room. "You're not alone," Mrs. Patel said, fierce. "He comes back, we'll bury him." Danielle nodded, grateful, but her mind churned. She added 2 more cameras, rigged floodlights, and slept with the Glock under her pillow, her dreams a mess of green skin and shattering glass. A week later, Jamal called with news. Probation tracked Hayes, alibis tight, D. He was at a bar in Macon when the brick hit. Someone else, maybe. Danielle's gut twisted. "Or he paid someone," she said. "Doesn't matter. I'm not blinking." She hung up, staring at the pool, its water glinting like a promise. Victor was gone physically, but his shadow stretched long. Maybe a lackey, maybe a grudge, maybe just her own paranoia. The barbecues kept going, louder now, a defiance. Kids swam, neighbors bonded, and Danielle coached the twins, her voice sharp but proud. "Faster, you little shits," she yelled, grinning as they splashed. The artist next door painted a mural on her fence. Kids in the pool, a green figure running off, a middle finger to the past. "Karma's a splash," one laughed, brushing on the last stroke. Danielle nodded, her cap off, curls free. "Damn right." But late at night the cameras hummed and she watched. The brick sat on her shelf, a trophy and a warning. Victor's house was sold, his name a curse, the neighborhood hers, but peace? That was a fight she'd keep winning, one day, one shadow at a time. The late summer haze hung heavy over Peachtree Heights, the kind of sticky heat that made the air feel like a wet blanket. Danielle Brooks stood by her pool, the water shimmering under the midday sun, a cold beer sweating in her hand. It had been a month since Victor Hayes' moving truck peeled out, a month since the brick hit her deck with that chilling note, "You can't escape me," and the neighborhood had settled into a rhythm she could finally call home. Kids splashed in the pool every weekend, their laughter bouncing off the fences, while parents swapped beers and stories on her patio. The mural next door, those painted kids chasing off a green-tinted asshole, had become a local legend, a badge of pride for a street that had shed its bully. She tipped her bottle back, the bitter fizz cutting through the heat, and let herself smile. She'd fucking done it, turned a war zone into a haven. But the quiet didn't sit right. Not fully. That brick still sat on her kitchen shelf, a jagged trophy she couldn't bring herself to toss. The cameras caught nothing that night. No hoodie, no Victor, just a ghost dropping a threat and vanishing. Jamal's call about Victor's alibi in Macon, 2 hours away, airtight, gnawed at her. Either he'd hired some punk to fuck with her, or someone else had picked up his torch. She doubled the floodlights, added a motion sensor that blared like a damn foghorn, and kept the Glock close, but sleep came in fits, her dreams a mess of green skin and shattering glass. "U1D, she muttered, staring at the water. "So why's it feel like he's still out there?" Her phone buzzed, Mrs. Alvarez, all caps. "Barbecue tonight at yours. Tamales ready. Bring beer." Danielle grinned, texting back, "Hell yeah, I'm on it." The neighborhood had her back now, Ingwin's, Patel's, the new artist couple next door, even Cheryl from the HOA with her shitty pie. They'd turned her pool into a rallying point, a fuck you to Victor's ghost, and she wasn't about to let a brick ruin that. She grabbed a six-pack from the fridge, her cap off, curls bouncing free, and headed out to prep the grill. The hacked patch was growing in, a little uneven but hers again, a quiet victory over his scissors. By dusk, the backyard was alive, kids cannonballing, smoke curling from the grill, music thumping from a Bluetooth speaker. Mr. Nguyen flipped burgers, his son cracking jokes about Victor's green ass, while the Patel twins begged Danielle for another swim lesson. "You're a drill sergeant," Mrs. Patel laughed, handing her a plate. "They've never swam this good." Danielle smirked, ruffling the girl's hair. "Gotta earn those medals, right?" The artists, Lena and Sam, joined in, Lena sketching the chaos on a napkin. "This is home now," Sam said, her voice soft. "Thanks to you." Danielle shrugged, but her chest warmed. This was her legacy. Fuck Victor, this was what she'd built. Night fell, the party winding down, and Danielle cleaned up alone, the pool lights casting long shadows. She was scrubbing the grill when her phone pinged, emotion alert, sharp and sudden. Her heart kicked into gear, the sponge slipping from her hand. She grabbed the Glock from the counter, flipped to the live feed and froze. A figure, hooded, hunched, stood by the pool, a crowbar glinting in their hand. Not a brick this time, they were prying at the diving board, metal screeching in the quiet. "Son of a bitch," she hissed, adrenaline flooding her veins. She slipped outside, barefoot, the gun steady, her breath shallow but controlled. The floodlights snapped on, the foghorn blaring, and the figure jolted, spinning to face her. The hoodie fell back, Victor fucking Hayes, his face gaunt, eyes wild, a faint green tint still clinging to his jawline like a stain. "You," he snarled, his voice raw, crowbar raised like a club. Danielle leveled the Glock, her stance pure cop, legs apart, eyes locked. "Drop it, asshole," she barked. "You're done." Victor laughed, a jagged, unhinged sound that sent a chill down her spine. "Done? You ruined me, you crazy bitch. My job, my friends, my fucking life, gone. You think probation stops me?" He stepped closer, the crowbar trembling in his grip. "I'll tear this shithole apart, starting with you." Danielle's finger tightened on the trigger, her voice ice. "One more step and I paint the deck with your brains. Try me." He froze, eyes darting, then lunged, not at her but the pool, swinging the crowbar at the ladder. Metal clanged, sparks flying, and Danielle charged, slamming her shoulder into his chest. He stumbled, the crowbar slipping, and she kicked it away, pinning him with her knee. "Stay down, motherfucker," she roared, the Glock at his temple. Victor thrashed, spitting curses. "You'll pay, you'll fucking pay." But she held firm, her pulse a war drum. Lights flicked on across the street, Ingwin's, Patel's, Alvarez all rushing out, phones in hand. "Cops are coming." Mr. Nguyen yelled, dialing 911. Victor's fight drained, his body slumping, but his eyes burned, pure hate. "This ain't over," he rasped, spit flecking his lips. Danielle pressed harder, her voice low. "Yeah, it is. You're finished." Sirens wailed, closing in, and Rodriguez and Kim screeched up, guns drawn. "Brooks, you good?" Rodriguez shouted, cuffing Victor's wrists. Danielle stepped back, panting, the Glock lowering. "Yeah," she said, her voice raw. "Get him out of here." They hauled him up, his head lolling, still muttering threats. "I'll be back, bitch," as they shoved him into the cruiser. The neighborhood watched, a silent wall of defiance, and Danielle felt their strength, a shield she hadn't known she'd forged. Jamal rolled up minutes later, his F-150 kicking gravel. "Jesus D," he said, jumping out. "You okay? What the fuck happened?" She handed him her phone, the footage already saved, Victor's break-in, the fight, all in crisp 4K. "He snapped," she said, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline ebbed. "Came for the pool, guess he couldn't let it go." Jamal watched, jaw tight. "Probation's toast. Assault, violation, he's going down hard. You're a goddamn tank, D." The cops took her statement, the crowd lingering, Mrs. Alvarez hugging her, Mr. Nguyen swearing to upgrade the watch rota. "He's gone for good now," Mrs. Patel said, fierce. Danielle nodded, but her eyes stayed on the cruiser's taillights, fading down the street. Victor's last words, "I'll be back," echoed, a splinter she couldn't dig out. She'd beaten him again, but at what cost? Days later the news hit. Victor pleaded guilty, facing years, not months, his lawyer bailing when the footage leaked. Peachtree Heights exhaled, the pool parties doubling down, louder, prouder, a fuck you to his memory. Danielle coached the twins, their medals piling up, and the mural got a new coat, Victor's green ass smaller, the kid's bigger, a story etched in paint. You're our hero, Lena said, brushing on the last stroke. Danielle smirked. Just a chick with a pool and a grudge. But reflection came late, alone with the camera's hum. She sat by the pool one night, beer in hand, the brick on the table beside her. She'd turned a house into a home, a street into a family, and Victor into a cautionary tale. 15 years on the force, she murmured, and this was the real fight. She'd stood her ground, not with bullets but with grit, and the neighborhood stood with her, a legacy deeper than she'd planned. Then a ping, motion alert, 1:47 a.m. Her heart skipped, hand on the Glock, but the feed showed nothing, just a stray cat slinking by. She laughed, sharp and tired, and leaned back. Victor was gone, locked up, broken, but the fight had changed her. She'd built something here, something worth defending, and if he ever crawled back she'd be ready. The pool sparkled, a mirror of her resolve, and Danielle raised her beer. To karma, she said, the night swallowing her words, a vow to keep standing no matter what. The cicadas screamed their endless summer song as Danielle Brooks sat on her back patio, the pool lights casting a soft glow across the yard. It was late September in Peachtree Heights, the air still thick with Georgia heat, but a faint breeze carried the promise of fall. She tipped back her beer, the cold bottle slick against her palm, and stared at the water, calm, clear, a far cry from the green chaos she'd unleashed on Victor Hayes months ago. His last stand, that crowbar-swinging meltdown by the pool, felt like a lifetime back. He was locked up now, 3 years firm, no parole, thanks to the assault charge and probation violation. The neighborhood had exhaled, her backyard a revolving door of barbecues and swim lessons. The mural next door a permanent fuck you to his memory. She'd won, goddammit, and the quiet should have felt good. But it didn't, not entirely. That brick, the one from August with "You Can't Escape Me," scrawled in jagged marker, still sat on her kitchen counter, a stubborn ghost she couldn't bury. Victor's make-an alibi for that night had checked out, bar receipts, witnesses, the works, but Danielle's gut wouldn't let it go. He'd had reach, money, spite enough to pull strings from 2 hours away. Or maybe it was someone else, some lackey picking up his grudge. The cameras hummed, the floodlights glared, and the Glock stayed close, but every creak of the house still jolted her awake, her dreams a tangle of his wild eyes and that unhinged laugh. "You're paranoid, D," she muttered, shaking her head. "He's gone. Let it rest." Her phone buzzed, Jamal right on cue. "Yo D, you grilling this weekend or what?" he teased, his voice a lifeline through the static. She smirked, kicking her boots up on the patio table. "Maybe Jay, twins want a rematch, say I'm too soft on him." He laughed. "Soft? You're a fucking drill sergeant." Neighborhood still buzzing 'bout Hayes, heard his old golf buddies won't even mention his name. Danielle's chest loosened a fraction. "Good riddance," she said, but her eyes flicked to Victor's old house, now home to Lena and Sam the artists. "Thanks for keeping tabs, man." Jamal's tone softened. "Always D. You good?" She lied. "Yeah, solid." He didn't push. She hung up, draining her beer, and headed inside to crash. The twins' swim meet was tomorrow, early start, medals on the line, and she needed sleep. She locked the doors, checked the cameras, empty feeds, just crickets and shadows, and hit the couch, the Glock under the cushion. Her curls spilled free, the hacked patch fully grown, a quiet badge of survival. She drifted off, the hum of the AC lulling her, until a sharp ping snapped her awake. Motion alert, 2:43 a.m. Her heart slammed into her throat, hand on the gun, eyes wide. "Not again," she hissed, flipping to the live feed. The backyard was lit up, floodlights blazing, foghorn silent this time, and there by the pool stood a figure. Not Victor, too short, too slight, but hooded, a backpack slung over one shoulder, something glinting in their hand. A knife? A gun? Danielle's blood ran cold. She slipped off the couch, barefoot, Glock steady, and crept to the back door, her breath shallow. The figure moved fast, crouching by the pool filter, fiddling with it. Sabotage, maybe poison. "Fuck this," she muttered, flinging the door open, the floodlights blinding as she stepped out. "Drop it, asshole," she barked, gun leveled, her voice cutting the night like a blade. The figure jolted, spinning, and the hood fell back. A kid, maybe 20, pale, acne-scarred, eyes wide with panic. "Don't shoot," he squeaked, hands up, a small vial clattering to the deck. Danielle's pulse raced, cop instincts kicking in. "Who the hell are you?" she snapped, stepping closer, the Glock unwavering. He stammered, voice cracking. I didn't mean, I was paid, okay? Just a job." Her stomach twisted. "Paid by who?" she growled, looming over him, the gun inches from his chest. He flinched, tears streaking his face. Some guy, met him at a bar in Macon. Said his name was Vic, gave me $500 to fuck up your pool, dump this shit in it. He nodded at the vial, clear liquid, no label. Danielle's mind raced. Victor pulling strings from prison, his spite stretching beyond bars. What's in it? She demanded, kicking the vial away. The kid sobbed. I don't know, acid maybe? Said it'd ruin everything. She grabbed his collar, yanking him up, her voice ice. You're coming with me, dipshit. She marched him inside, shoved him onto a chair, and dialed Jamal, the Glock still trained on him. Jay, get over here, now, she said, her words clipped. Caught a punk by the pool, Victor's behind it. Jamal cursed. On my way. Cops too? She nodded. Yeah, call him. She hung up, glaring at the kid who shrank under her stare. You picked the wrong night, she said, low and dangerous. Rodriguez and Kim rolled up 10 minutes later, lights flashing, with Jamal's F-150 right behind. The kid, Tyler, he blubbered, was cuffed fast, still sniveling as Rodriguez bagged the vial. Looks like bleach or worse, Kim said, frowning. Lab'll tell us. You okay, Brooks? Danielle nodded, her jaw tight. Yeah, just pissed. Hayes sent him, kid met him in Macon. Rodriguez's eyes darkened. From lockup? That's some next-level shit. Jamal stormed in, fists clenched. D, what the fuck? You good? She handed him the footage, Tyler sneaking in, the vial drop, all caught in 4K. Better now, she said, her voice steel. The cops hauled Tyler off, his sobs fading into the siren wail, and Jamal stayed, pacing her kitchen. Victor's pulling strings from a cell? He said, incredulous. How's he even? Danielle cut in, her eyes hard. Money, spite, doesn't matter. He's done, I'm ending this. She grabbed her laptop, uploaded the footage and emailed it to the precinct, the DA, and, fuck it, the news again. Let's see him wiggle out of this, she said, hitting send. Jamal grinned, fierce. You're a goddamn force, D. By morning the story broke. Jailed man allegedly hires teen to sabotage neighbor's pool, and Peachtree Heights erupted. WhatsApp exploded, neighbors raging, vowing to testify if it came to court. Mrs. Alvarez dropped off tamales, her face thunderous. That hijo de puta doesn't quit, she spat. We've got you, Mija. Mr. Nguyen rigged extra lights, the Patels offered their dashcam footage from that night. Nothing solid, but the gesture hit deep. Lena and Sam painted a new mural figure. A kid in a hoodie running off, Victor's green ghost behind bars. Your saga's epic, Lena laughed, brushing on the bars. The DA called noon, Victor's plea deal was toast, new charges piling up. Conspiracy, attempted vandalism, maybe more once the vial tested out. He's looking at a decade now, the voice crackled. Your footage sealed it. Danielle hung up, her hands shaking, not fear but triumph, raw and real. She'd buried him, not just in shame but in steel bars, and this time he wasn't clawing out. That night, the neighborhood threw an impromptu bash, grill roaring, pool packed, music loud enough to wake the dead. Danielle stood by the water, beer in hand, watching the twins dive, their medals glinting from last week's meet. You're the boss, Mr. Patel said, clinking bottles. This street's ours, cause of you. She smirked, but her eyes scanned the shadows, habit now. Victor was gone, really gone, but the fight had carved her, sharpened her, left a mark she'd carry proud. Late, alone, she sat by the pool, the brick in her lap. She traced the note, "You can't escape me," and laughed, sharp and free. Guess I did, asshole, she said, tossing it into the water. It sank, ripples fading, and she leaned back, the cameras humming, the night hers. She turned a house into a fortress, a street into a family, and Victor into a footnote, a legacy forged in fire, unshakable, hers to keep. The October chill had finally crept into Peachtree Heights, cutting through the thick Georgia humidity with a crisp edge that made the air bite. Danielle Brooks leaned against her patio railing, a steaming mug of coffee warming her hands, the pool reflecting the gray dawn like a sheet of steel. It had been weeks since she'd tossed that brick, "You can't escape me," into the water, weeks since Tyler's arrest and Victor Hayes' prison plot unraveled under the weight of her footage. The bastard was buried now, 10 years minimum, no chance of parole, his name a curse whispered only in dark corners. Her backyard hummed with life, weekend barbecues, swim meets, the Patel twins racking up medals under her barked orders. The mural next door had grown, Victor's green ghost shrinking smaller with every brushstroke, a fading stain on a street she'd claimed as hers. She sipped her coffee, the bitter heat grounding her, and let herself breathe. "Fuck you, Victor," she muttered, a quiet toast to the wind. She'd won, really won, and it should have been over. But should have didn't mean shit. That brick sinking into the pool hadn't drowned the unease gnawing at her gut. Victor was locked up, Tyler was spilling his guts to the DA, and the neighborhood had her back. Mrs. Alvarez with her tamales, Mr. Nguyen with his watch, Rhoda, Lena and Sam with their paint. Yet every night, the camera's hum buzzed in her ears, the Glock stayed under her pillow, and her dreams twisted with shadows. His laugh, his wild eyes, that damn crowbar. Paranoid, she scoffed, shaking her head, but her hand tightened on the mug. She'd beaten him 3 times by the pool in cuffs from prison, and still something felt off, a loose thread she couldn't cut. Her phone buzzed, Jamal early as hell. "D, you up?" he said, voice rough like he'd just rolled out of bed. She smirked, kicking her boots against the railing. "Barely, Jay. What's up?" He paused, the kind of pause that made her stomach clench. "Got a tip from the precinct, shady shit. Hayes' old lawyer, that slick bastard? He's been sniffing around asking about you. Might be nothing but..." Danielle's pulse kicked up, coffee sloshing as she straightened. "Nothing my ass," she said, her voice low. "Victor's got no play left. Why's this prick digging?" Jamal sighed. "Dunno, D. Could be tying up loose ends, could be worse. Watch your 6, I'm checking it out." She nodded, grim. "Thanks, Jay. Keep me posted." She hung up, her eyes darting to Victor's old house. Lena and Sam's now, their easels visible through the blinds. The lawyer, sharp jaw, slick hair, the kind of guy who'd sell his mom for $1, had dropped Victor's flimsy suit fast when the heat cranked up. Why the fuck was he back? She drained her coffee, the burn sharpening her focus, and headed inside to check the cameras. Routine now, a lifeline. The feeds were clean, crisp leaves skittering across the deck, a stray cat slinking by, but her gut screamed otherwise. "One more round, huh?" she muttered, grabbing her Glock. She wasn't waiting for this to land on her doorstep. That afternoon shit hit the fan. She was at Home Depot picking up bulbs for the floodlights when her phone pinged, a motion alert, midday, bold as hell. Her heart slammed into her ribs, cart abandoned as she flipped to the live feed. The backyard was chaos, 2 figures, hooded, bulky, smashing the pool filter with crowbars, sparks flying. Not kids this time, grown-ass men, broad shoulders, deliberate moves. "Motherfuckers," she hissed, sprinting to her Civic, the Glock tucked in her waistband. She dialed Jamal, tires screeching as she peeled out. "Jay, 2 pricks at my place right now. Call the cops." He cursed loud. "On it, DETA, 10 minutes. Don't go in hot." She hung up, her mind racing. Victor's lawyer, these goons, a last-ditch stab from a cage. She hit Oak Grove in 7 minutes flat, the Civic skidding to a stop 2 houses down. The floodlights blazed, foghorn silent. Someone had cut the wires. She slipped out, crouching low, the Glock steady as she crept through the Patel's yard, her breath shallow. Voices drifted, gruff, pissed. "Hurry the fuck up," one growled. "Boss wants it trashed, pool, fence, all of it." The other grunted, metal clanging as they ripped the filter apart. Danielle's blood boiled. These weren't random punks. They were hired, precise, Victor's final fuck you. She peeked over the fence. 2 guys, late 30s, leather jackets, one with a buzz cut, the other a scruffy beard, crowbars swinging like they were demolition pros. The pool water sloshed, pipes busted, and her grill lay toppled, burger grease streaking the deck. "You're dead," she whispered, her voice ice, and stepped out, gun raised. "Drop the bars, assholes," she roared, her cop bark echoing. They spun, buzz cut reaching for something, a knife glinting in his belt, but Danielle fired a warning shot, the crack splitting the air, bullet burying into the deck. "I said drop him." Buzz cut froze, hands up, the knife clattering. Beard cursed, tossing his crowbar, eyes darting like a trapped rat. "Who sent you?" she snapped, advancing, the Glock locked on Buzz Cut's chest. He sneered, spit flecking his lip. "Fuck you, lady. You're done." Beard elbowed him, frantic. "Shut up, man, she's crazy." Danielle's grin was feral. "You've got no idea. Talk or the next one's in your knee." Sirens wailed, closing in, and the goons flinched, Rodriguez and Kim, lights flashing, peeling into the drive. Jamal's F-150 screeched up behind, his bulk storming out, gun drawn. "D, you good?" he yelled, flanking her. She nodded, her voice steel. "Yeah, Jay, caught him red-handed." The cops swarmed, Rodriguez cuffing Buzz Cut, Kim pinning Beard, while Danielle lowered the Glock, her hands shaking now, adrenaline crashing. "Victor's lawyer," she said loud enough for all to hear. "Check him, these pricks are his." The footage was gold, 4K, every swing, every curse caught from 3 angles. Jamal watched, jaw tight, as the cops hauled the goons off, their snarls fading into the siren wail. Jesus D, he said, shaking his head. Hayes is a cockroach, keeps crawling back. She handed him her phone, the feed saved. Not this time, she said, her eyes hard. This ends him. By nightfall, the precinct had the lawyer, caught on a burner phone call to Buzz Cut, promising cash to finish her off. Victor's prints were all over it, recorded prison calls, coded but sloppy, begging for one last hit. He's fucked, Rodriguez said, dropping by with the update. Conspiracy, attempted assault, DA's piling on decades. He ain't seeing daylight. Danielle nodded, her chest tight, not relief but something fiercer. Good, she said, her voice raw. Bury him. The neighborhood didn't sleep. WhatsApp blazed, Mrs. Alvarez raging, we're done with this mierda. Mr. Nguyen vowing, no more assholes, watches 24/7 now. The Patels brought beer, Lena and Sam painted the goons into the mural, hooded shadows crushed under a wave of kids. You're untouchable, Lena said, brushing on the last stroke. Danielle smirked, but her eyes stayed sharp. Just stubborn, she said, clinking bottles. Days later the news hit, jailed man's final revenge foiled, and Peachtree Heights threw a bash to end all bashes. Grill roaring, pool packed, music thumping, the street alive with defiance. Danielle stood by the water, beer in hand, watching the twins dive, their medals glinting. You're the queen, Mr. Patel laughed, tossing her a burger. She caught it, grinning, but her mind drifted. Victor's last gasp, those goons, her Glocks crack. She'd stood her ground again, and the neighborhood stood taller for it. Late, alone, she sat by the pool, the brick gone now, tossed in the trash where it belonged. The cameras hummed, the night still, and she reflected, 15 years on the force, a house turned fortress, a street turned family. Victor was a footnote, his spite a fading echo, but the fight had forged her, a legacy etched in grit and sweat. To standing, she murmured, raising her beer, the water glinting like a vow. She'd won, not just survived but triumphed, and Peachtree Heights would never forget. The first frost of November dusted Peachtree Heights, a thin sheen of white glittering on the lawns under a pale morning sun. Danielle Brooks stood by her pool, breath fogging in the crisp air, a steaming mug of coffee clutched tight. The water was still now, covered with a tarp for the season, but its presence loomed large, a battleground turned beacon, a symbol of every fight she'd won. Victor Hayes was gone for good, decades behind bars, his last gasp crushed when those goons trashed her yard and met her Glock. The neighborhood had roared back, a street party sealing his defeat, the mural next door a testament to their grit. She sipped her coffee, the burn cutting through the cold, and let a rare, full smile crack her face. Fuck you, Victor, she whispered, the words a quiet him to the frost. She turned a house into a fortress, a street into a family, and his spite into dust. But victory didn't erase the echoes. The cameras still hummed, their red lights blinking through the night, and the Glock stayed close, habit now, a scar from months of war. Those goons, hired by Victor's sleazy lawyer, were spilling to the DA, their pleas piling years on his sentence. The brick, the pool die, the crowbar nights, they'd faded, but her gut twitched at shadows, her dreams still jagged with his laugh. You're done, D, she muttered, shaking it off, but her eyes flicked to the fence, half expecting a hoodie to slink by. She'd won, fuck, she'd dominated, but peace was a muscle she was still flexing. Her phone buzzed, Jamal bright and early. D, you freezing your ass off yet? He teased, his voice a warm jolt through the chill. She smirked, kicking a clump of frost off the deck. Barely, Jay. You. He laughed. Hell no, got the heater cranked. Heard the twins took gold last week. You're doing, huh? Danielle's chest warmed. Damn right. Little shits swam their hearts out, medals all around. Jamal's tone shifted, softer. You're a legend, D, precinct still talking about Hayes, guy's a ghost now. You good? She paused, the mug steaming against her lips. Yeah, Jay, solid. It wasn't a lie, not fully. She hung up, her gaze drifting to the mural. Victor's green ash shrunk to a speck, kids towering over him, a story painted in defiance. The street had changed. Mrs. Alvarez's tamales a weekend staple, Mr. Nguyen's watch crew patrolling like hawks, Lena and Sam's art turning fences into galleries. The Patels twins begged her to coach spring season, their parents calling her the glue. She'd shrugged it off, just a chick with a pool, but deep down it hit. This was her mark, a legacy forged in fire and stubbornness, and it felt fucking good. That afternoon the mail brought a curveball. She flipped through bills, junk, then stopped. A plain envelope, no return address, postmarked Macon. Her pulse kicked up, coffee mug clattering to the counter as she tore it open. Inside, a single photo, grainy black and white, her by the pool, mid-yell, Glock raised at those goons. Scrawled on the back in Sharpie, "You think it's over?" No signature but the handwriting, jagged, furious, screamed Victor. Her hands shook, not fear but rage, a wildfire flaring back to life. "Son of a bitch," she hissed, storming to her laptop, the Glock within reach. She called Jamal, her voice tight. "Jay got a photo. Hayes from Macon. He's still fucking with me." Jamal cursed loud. "From lockup? Shit, I'm on it. Scan it, send it. Cops now." She nodded, scanning the pic as they spoke. "Yeah, call him. This ends today." She emailed it, Jamal, the precinct, the DA, then grabbed her phone, checking the cameras. Empty feeds, just frost and bare trees, but her gut churned. Victor was buried. How the hell was he reaching out? Rodriguez rolled up in 20 minutes, Kim behind, their cruiser kicking gravel. "Brooks, what's this?" Rodriguez said, eyeing the photo, his face grim. Danielle handed it over, her jaw clenched. "Victor, his writing, his spite. Sent from Macon." Kim frowned, bagging it. "He's in max security, no mail privileges, till next month. This ain't him directly, someone's running for him." Danielle's blood ran hot. "Then find the fucker," she snapped. "I'm done playing whack-a-mole." Jamal screeched in, his F-150 a welcome roar. "D, you okay?" he said, storming up, eyes wild. She nodded, handing him the scanned pic. "Pissed, not scared. He's clawing from a cage, pathetic." Jamal studied it, jaw tight. "Prison'll trace it, guards, inmates, someone's dirty. You're safe, D, cops are circling." She smirked, bitter. "Safe's relative, Jay." The precinct moved fast. Victor's cell tossed, a smuggled burner found, an inmate ratting out a guard for $50 and a pack of smokes. The photo traced back. A petty grudge, a cousin of one of Victor's golf buddies, pissed his family name tanked with the scandal. "Small fry," Rodriguez updated her that night, voice crackling over the phone. "Caught him in Macon, confessed fast. Hayes fed him the idea through the guard. It's over, Brooks, really over." Danielle exhaled, her chest loosening. "Good," she said, her voice steel. "Burn it all down." The neighborhood caught wind. WhatsApp blazed, Mrs. Alvarez raging. "That bastard's done." Mr. Nguyen doubled the watch, Lena and Sam painting the photo into the mural, a crumpled note under a kid's boot. "Last gasp," Lena said, brushing on the stomp. Danielle nodded, her eyes sharp. "Fucker's out of breath." But the real twist hit days later. A Saturday, frost melting under a weak sun, the twins begging for one last swim before winter locked in. Danielle was rigging the tarp when her phone pinged, not a motion alert, but a text from an unknown number, "Check your mail." Her heart stopped, Glock grabbed, and she bolted to the box. Empty except a small package, no postmark, just her name in block letters. She tore it open, breath shallow, a USB drive, black, unmarked. "What the fuck now?" she muttered, storming inside, laptop whirring as she plugged it in. A video loaded, grainy, shaky, Victor in an orange jumpsuit, hunched in a cell, staring at the camera. "You think you won, huh?" he rasped, voice raw, eyes sunken. "You took everything. My house, my name, my fucking life. Enjoy it, bitch, 'cause I'm still here and I'll haunt you till I rot." The screen cut to static, then black, a timestamp. 2 weeks ago, pre-lockdown. Danielle's blood ran cold, then hot, a laugh ripping out, sharp, fierce. "You're nothing," she said to the blank screen, yanking the drive. She called Jamal, voice steady. "Jay got a gift, hey swan song. Video from prison, pathetic." He cursed. "Send it, D, cops'll bury it." Rodriguez confirmed it, smuggled out pre-bust, the guard's last job before the sting. "He's got no moves left," he said, dropping by with coffee. "This is his grave, he's just yelling from it." Danielle nodded, the USB in her fist. "Good. Let him scream." The neighborhood threw a bash that night, grill roaring, pool tarp off for one last dip, music loud enough to rattle the frost. The twins dove, their medals glinting, Mr. Nguyen flipping burgers, Mrs. Alvarez hugging her tight. "You're our rock," she said, fierce. Danielle grinned, beer in hand, the USB tossed in the trash. "Just a chick who fights," she said, clinking bottles. Lena and Sam added Victor's video face to the mural, gaunt, broken, a kid splashing paint over it. "Done," Sam laughed, brushing the last stroke. Late, alone, Danielle sat by the pool, frost creeping back, the drive gone, the cameras quiet. She reflected, 15 years on the force, a war with a ghost, a street reborn. Victor's echoes, bricks, goons, videos, Were Ash now, his spite a whisper she drowned. To winning, she murmured, raising her beer, the night swallowing her words. She'd stood, fought, triumphed, a legacy carved in defiance, a new beginning hers to shape.